If you're an entrepreneur and someone asks you how you're doing, what's your go-to answer? It's probably busy, right? Stressed out, working crazy long hours, never any time to just relax. It's a story we all know. But what if I told you the real problem isn't your massive to-do list? What if it's actually a single, simple question that you're asking yourself over and over again? Does this feel familiar? Just a mountain of things you have to do and what feels like 5 minutes to get it all done. It's that classic hamster wheel feeling where you're running and running, but the to-do list, it just never seems to get any shorter. Now, everyone tells us the answer is just, manage your time better. But what if that advice is completely, totally wrong? And that's where we get to the core idea from a business coach named Dan Sullivan. He basically says that the way out of being constantly overworked isn't working harder or, finding a new time management app. No, it's a huge shift in your thinking. And it all starts with the very first question you ask yourself when you're looking at a new task or a new project. Okay, so let's dig into this. That feeling of being busy all the time, it's not a badge of honor. It's actually a trap. We're going to call it the how mindset trap. And believe me, it keeps so many smart, capable people just stuck. And this is what that trap feels like. You've got the constant stress, you're always busy, there's zero time to relax, and your earnings kind of hit a ceiling. It's all because of that one little question playing on a loop in your head. How can I do this? Our brains are just wired to ask that first, and that's exactly what keeps us spinning on that hamster wheel. So, if asking how is the problem, then what's the solution? Well, it's a really simple but honestly profound shift. Instead of asking, how can I do this, you need to start asking a different question. Who can do this for me? I love this comparison because it really lays out the two different paths you can take. On one side, you have the old question, how? It limits you, it leads straight to burnout, and it keeps you stuck. But the new question, who? Well, that's a game changer. It unlocks collaboration, it leads to freedom, and it just massively accelerates your results. It's really the difference between doing all the labor yourself versus using leverage. And get this is the best part. The author of the book, Who Not How, Dan Sullivan, he didn't write a single word of it himself. Think about that for a second. How do you write a book without actually, writing it? You find a who. He completely lived his own philosophy. He had all the ideas and the vision, but he found the perfect person to do the actual writing. It's the ultimate proof that this mindset works. All right, so what actually happens when you start making this shift? Well, the benefits are way bigger than just ticking more things off your list. You start to get back the two most valuable things you have as an entrepreneur, your time and your mental energy. Let me tell you a quick story to show you how this works in a really simple way. So there's this 16-year-old kid named Richie who wants to make some cash over the summer. His how plan? You guessed it, get a miserable job at a grocery store for the whole summer. But his dad, who becomes his who in this story, gives him this brilliant idea. He says, go buy all the weird, ugly watermelons from the farmer for cheap and then sell them door to door in the neighborhood. And what happened? Instead of wasting his entire summer, Richie made all the money he needed in just a few hours and got his vacation back. That's the power of who. His dad wasn't an employee, he was just a source of a better idea that totally changed the game for him. And this is why that free time is so important. Look at this. Research shows that only 16% of our creative ideas happen when we're actually at work, grinding away. The other 84%, they come when our minds are free. When we're in the shower, on a walk, or just relaxing. So if you're constantly stuck in the how, you're literally robbing yourself of the time and space you need for those big, game-changing ideas. And there's another huge problem with always being stuck in the how mindset. It's this thing called decision fatigue. Think of our brain like a phone battery. Every single little decision you have to make, every how do I do this, drains that battery a little bit. So by the time you get to the really big, important decisions of the day, your battery's in the red, you're exhausted, and you just can't think clearly. Here's a great real-world example. There was an attorney named Jacob who was totally inspired by this idea. He decided to find a who for his daily commute, so he stopped driving himself and started taking an Uber every day. Now, yeah, it cost him about $50 a day, but here's what he got in return. 90 minutes of his time back. He'd show up to big meetings totally calm and prepared, not stressed from traffic. And that small investment, it often turned into tens of thousands of dollars in new business because he was able to operate at his absolute best. Okay, so right about now, you're probably thinking, this sounds awesome, but how do I actually do it? How do I find my who? It's a great question, and it does take a little strategy, so let's break it down. Now, the first step is going to sound a little weird. You need to look at what you're procrastinating on. Yep, you heard me right. Think about that project you keep putting off, that thing on your to-do list that's been there for months. Procrastination isn't you being lazy. It's actually a signal. It's your brain telling you, hey, this goal is bigger than what I can do alone right now. It's time to find a who. But here's the thing. You can't find the right who if you're not super clear on the what. And that's where this amazing tool called the impact filter comes into play. You just walk through these steps. What's the purpose? Why is it important? What does the finished project look like exactly? What are the success criteria? When you write all this down, you create a perfect blueprint that you can just hand to a potential who. It tells them exactly what a win looks like. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I know what a lot of you are thinking. This all sounds great, but it also sounds expensive. I can't afford to hire someone for everything. And look, that is the single biggest mental block people have. We have got to reframe this. Finding a who is not a cost. It's an investment. I love this quote. If you have enough money to solve a problem, then you don't have a problem. It just cuts right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? We get so caught up in trying to save money, but the real power of money is using it to solve problems, and more importantly, to buy back our time, which is the one thing we can never, ever get more of. So let me tell you a pretty scary story that illustrates this perfectly. It's about an entrepreneur named Wes, and this guy had just sold his company, making him a billionaire. But one day, his home air conditioner broke, and that old, familiar, I should save money mindset just kicked right in. He got a quote to fix it, and it was $7,900. Now, for a billionaire, that is practically nothing. It's a rounding error. But Wes used to be a contractor, and that little voice in his head started whispering, how can I do this myself and save that money? So, he decided to climb up on the roof and fix it himself. And the result was an absolute catastrophe. He fell off the roof. He spent 11 days in the hospital, 2 of those in a coma. He was stuck in bed for 2 months and literally had to relearn basic skills. His attempt to save just under $8,000 ended up costing him his health, his time, and it nearly cost him his life. That is the real cost of asking how when you should have been asking who. So when you really, truly embrace this way of thinking, you unlock a kind of freedom that's so much bigger than just having a few extra hours in your day. It completely changes the entire game of your professional life. The ultimate goal here is to become what's called the buyer. What does that mean? It means you are in the driver's seat. You get to choose who you work with, your clients, your partners, your team. You're never desperate for a deal, which means you can walk away from anything or anyone that doesn't feel right. Now that is what true professional freedom feels like. And finally, this whole mindset pushes you away from competition and toward collaboration. Let me give you one last example. There was an attorney, Karen, who had been struggling for years to write a biography about her famous grandmother. Then she finds out a history professor is planning to write one too. Her first reaction? Panic, competition. But then she had that aha moment and thought, why not collaborate? That professor became her perfect who. The book they wrote together was infinitely better than what she could have done alone, and the whole experience was just incredibly meaningful for her. So I want to leave you with this one big question. Take a look at your own goals, your business, your life. What amazing things could you get done? What kind of freedom could you unlock if you just stopped asking how and instead you started asking who?